Happy Saturday, everyone. This is the George here, and an early happy Halloween to everyone. I might do another review before Halloween. I might not. I know I didn't. I'm do a whole lot of Halloween themed videos this year compared to last year, but I'm gonna make up for it with this stream talking about some of my favorite things about Halloween, some of my favorite Halloween spooky horror themed movies and shows, because this is one of my favorite times of the year. Now, before I continue going, please hit this like button if you enjoyed this content, and please subscribe if you haven't already. And today we are going to be talking about Halloween stuff. Now, I might be bringing up stuff that I might have reviewed in the past, whether it was last year or 2 years ago or this year or what I haven't reviewed yet. That doesn't mean I'm not going to review some of this stuff eventually, because I probably will, and I'll go into more details about that stuff. But Halloween's a very special holiday for me. I've always liked monsters and ghosts. I grew up watching stuff such as Scooby Doo, Courage the Cowardly Dog, The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser, was the first PG-13 movie I was allowed to watch, believe it or not. And that led to me being a mummy for, I think, 2 to 3 years in a row when I was a kid. I always loved mummies. I grew up, monsters such as Frankenstein, Headless Horseman, the werewolf, Dracula. So I've always enjoyed monsters. I've always enjoyed scary stuff. It took me a while to get into real horror. I remember I was never a big fan of watching blood and gore, and it wasn't until watching A Nightmare on Elm Street at my high school's movie club, where as long as we got a permission slip signed, we were allowed to watch A Nightmare on Elm Street. I got my permission slip signed, and we watched A Nightmare on Elm Street, and that was my introduction to true horror, to the slasher genre. I remember, even though I was freaked out by that movie, I had my closet door shut for almost a week. I still love that movie. I had a great time with that movie. The mystery surrounding Freddy Krueger. Nancy, is she going to be the next victim? How is she going to stop Freddy Krueger? There was some stuff at the end of the movie that reminded me of Home Alone, but obviously instead of two idiot bandits, it's a killer with scissors for hands. Well, not scissors, knives for hands. And if it wasn't for that movie, I would never have given Halloween a shot. I wouldn't have given Scream a shot. And those are two of my all-time favorite movies. Scream is probably my favorite horror movie of all time. I've said it before many times. I probably relate to the characters in that movie a lot. Randy from those movies, a lot of those characters. I love the conversations about movies, about horror cliches, about surviving horror movies. The antagonist, I love how it's basically a mystery, even though it's always someone dressed as Ghostface, but there's like a different suspect, and there's always somebody new motivations. So I just love mystery stuff like that. It's basically if you made Scooby Doo R-rated and take Scooby Doo away. In other words, it's something that's a million times better than Velma, that weird show we got earlier this year. Speaking of Scooby Doo, that was my introduction to scary stuff, watching Mystery Inc. solve mysteries, taking on the bad guy in a mask, whether it's the mummy or a werewolf or a zombie. I always enjoyed stuff like that. I always loved the mystery thrill. And something I might have mentioned before, maybe not on this channel, but maybe on other friend streams. Maybe I've mentioned on this channel, I don't know. One of the things I do watch on YouTube, besides movie talk, I do watch other stuff on YouTube, is haunted exploration videos, going into abandoned places. I was introduced to this corner of YouTube 5 years ago. I can't. I'm trying to remember how I landed up in that corner. I found a 24-hour challenge video, and all of a sudden I started watching those 24-hour challenge videos. Remember that phase in the mid 2010s where YouTubers were staying in stores, theme parks, other places for 24 hours, and we're trying to avoid getting caught. and sometimes they would get caught, sometimes they wouldn't. And I'm pretty sure the YouTuber was Aldo's World. It was through Aldo's World because he did a lot of 24-hour challenge videos where I discovered Mo Sargi, who is very into exploring haunted places. So I started watching his content, which led me to Omar Gosh TV, who's another one who goes into haunted places. These haunted places are abandoned factories, warehouses, houses. Sometimes weird stuff just happens in those places, like cults go in there. Sometimes it's haunted tunnels. I remember one video where Omar Gosh, Mo, and their friend James went into a tunnel, and I think it was a homeless guy dressed as a clown attacked them. Now there could be a chance that's maybe somebody was pretending to be the clown. I don't know, but that's one of my favorite videos. It's just imagine just going in a tunnel and some weird person dressed as a scary clown is chasing after you. And I think that was also around the time it came out. And I've seen it. I didn't watch it in theaters, but I remember it was around the time it came out. But there's just something about going into haunted places. Obviously, Ouija board stuff does kind of freak me out. But I would say if I wasn't worried about getting hurt, if I wasn't worried about getting into trouble, because obviously you can get into trouble going into these places. They're abandoned for reasons. A lot of these places are off limits. I probably would try to do this on the side. I probably would fail at this. I probably would get hurt. I probably would get attacked by some homeless person. But that's something that in an alternate reality, I can possibly see myself. The George in the multiverse of madness. But yeah, so I watch a lot of that. I don't watch it as often as I used to, but I still watch it from time to time. It kind of depends on what mood I'm in. Sometimes I just need a break from other YouTube content, and I'm like, oh, let's see what's going on in the abandoned corner of YouTube, the abandoned exploration corner of YouTube. And yeah, so it's not just movies that I watch haunted stuff with. I watch it on YouTube. I watch it on TV. I used to watch, I think it was Ghost Detectives, or it was some show where people were finding sightings of ghosts. Sometimes I watch haunted documentaries, even video games. The first Nintendo game that we got when we got the GameCube was Luigi's Mansion. I have a blast playing the original Luigi's Mansion. I got the other two. I enjoy playing those games as well. One of my favorite Legend of Zelda video games is the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, which is probably the closest the Legend of Zelda has gotten to horror. I mean, that game, in my opinion, that's the darkest Legend of Zelda game. And I know it came out around October, so it kind of makes sense. But I love Majora's Mask. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the Shao Temple freaks me the hell out. It took me a while to get through that temple when I first played Ocarina of Time. I used to play Scooby-Doo video games. Night of 100 Frights is an all-time classic for me. I wouldn't say The Last of Us. I don't know, what would The Last of Us be considered horror? I honestly don't know. But yeah, The Last of Us, with the infected element, having a horror theme to it. I enjoy that, even though it freaks me the hell out. But I remember also as a kid, Disney Channel, when Disney Channel used to have decent Disney Channel movies, the Halloween Town movies were a classic to watch at home. I used to have Halloween toys, like Halloween stuffed animals or stuffed plushies. Sometimes I used to get the McDonald's Halloween figures when they used to sell them. Not sell them, have them with the Happy Meal. And just, I would make my own Halloween Town. That's how much I loved the Halloween Town movies. I actually today rewatched Halloween Town and Halloween Town 2, Calabar's Revenge. And those are really the only two I really need. I feel like I need to rewatch every Halloween because they're classics and I love them. Even though they're not the best movies. Maybe I'll watch Halloween Town High. I can kind of do with not watching Return to Halloween Town. I don't hate it, but when they recasted the main actress, I don't know. It just felt off to me. But yeah, I used to grow up watching that. Hocus Pocus was something me and my family we watch at least once a year. Hocus Pocus 2 was very disappointing last year. It felt like a Disney Channel movie. I was rewatching Hocus Pocus last night, and honestly, I was kind of basically saying that watching this, just seeing how mature I would have considered it back in the day, and just how Hocus Pocus 2 felt like a goofy Disney Channel movie that's not even as good as some of the Disney Channel movies from the late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know. To me, it was one of the most disappointing sequels. I was looking forward to a Hocus Pocus 2 for a while, and you couldn't even get one of the main stars, one of the main actresses to come back is beyond me. I mean, I know the guy that played Max, the virgin that lit the candle. I know that he retired from acting, but they should have at least gotten the actress that played Danny in the original. And her name was Thora Birch. Yeah, you could have at least gotten Thora Birch to return. I mean, you were able to get the actresses that played the Sanderson sisters, Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, Kathy Najimy. Sorry if I mispronounced that last name. I'm not good with last names. But you couldn't even get Danny. I don't know. It just. Oh, and also, I'm pretty sure they got the guy who played Billy back. Yeah, Doug Jones. So I don't know, it was a very disappointing movie, but you know what? I have the first Hocus Pocus still, and I will continue to forever watch the original Hocus Pocus because the original Hocus Pocus is a classic. It's not the greatest movie, but I just love the hell out of it. It's just a timeless classic, and I'm very fascinated by the Salem witch trials. I remember in 8th grade, we learned about the Salem witch trials back in 8th grade. Um, believe it or not, we watched most of the movie The Crucible, starring Daniel Day Lewis and Winona Ryder, and well, except for the beginning part because there was some very graphic stuff at the beginning, and my teacher was not going to show that because we can get in a lot of trouble for seeing that at that time. But afterwards, like we're watching how the Salem witch trials are going, people getting accused of witchcraft and all that, and I just kind of find it fascinating that something like that happened and so many people got accused of witchcraft. And then you watch Hocus Pocus and you're like, oh, these are actual witches that were sucking the life out of children. Yikes. But I don't know, I always feel bad when Zachary Binks dies when he's a cat. Well, when he gets turned into a cat and he has to live forever. I just feel so bad. But especially because I'm a cat lover. I love cats. But yeah, Hocus Pocus is definitely one of those movies I have to watch every Halloween at least once. Another movie that I have to watch at least once every year, and I actually did a review on it this Halloween, is Scooby Doo on Zombie Island. And by the way, I find it interesting. Chris Stuckman did a review on Scooby Doo on Zombie Island, which I find to be fascinating because I didn't even know he grew up watching that movie. I mean, he was probably in that age demographic at that time, but still. And Scooby Doo on Zombie Island to me was PG horror done right because you got these zombies that they look really scary. They're going after the gang, but they're not really hurting the gang. But then you find out that all these zombies were victims of these cat creatures that were sucking the life out of them. You know, we just got done talking about Hocus Pocus, the Sanderson sisters sucking the life out of children. You got these cat creatures who are sucking the life out of people. And at first, you feel bad for the cat creatures because their friends got killed by Captain Moonscar, the pirate guy. But then they kind of become like Captain Morgan Moonscar by killing innocent people, luring people to the island, just killing them. People who did nothing wrong. So it's like, in the words of Harvey Dent, you lived long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that movie in Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island came out a decade before The Dark Knight came out. But I love Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Also, The Witch's Ghost. And I guess because it's got a fall feeling, Scooby-Doo and The Witch's Ghost, they're talking about witches. Pumpkins are coming to life chasing after the gang. Like, to me, those are like the two Scooby-Doo movies that I have to rewatch around Halloween because they feel the most Halloweenish, even more so than some of the more recent Scooby-Doo direct-to-video Halloween movies that have come out, which I actually haven't watched, but just based on what I've watched, they kind of seem a little too goofy for me at this point. Maybe I'll one day watch them. But yeah, those are two other childhood movies that I definitely watch. And the Hex Girl songs. Did anyone grow up like listening to the Hex Girl songs from those movies and were like, wow, this is better than some of the songs that come out today? And I'm not bluffing. The Hex Girls had some really catchy songs. Also, it was actually through the Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost VHS where I saw the first Courage the Cowardly Dog cartoon. It was like the one with the, I think it was an alien chicken. There wasn't really much talk in the cartoon, though. I think it was Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders that you had the episode of King Ramses after the movie. I miss those days. It's so weird. The VHS days, it used to be frustrating to rewind your VHS, but I loved the previews that we used to get and what we would get after the movie. But now I feel like with DVD and Blu-ray, things are more convenient with physical media. Obviously, with streaming, things are also convenient. It's a shame that physical media is dying out, but I'm still buying it because I don't care. I love physical media. So another childhood classic, I would say, would probably be Beetlejuice, directed by Tim Burton, and I can't wait for Beetlejuice 2 to come out next year. I'm hoping, I know this is a Halloween themed stream, but I just want to say, I'm hoping this writer's strike is done and over with very soon. It sounds like progress is being made. Hopefully that's the case. And if it is, hopefully, because Tim Burton said they only have a day and a half left to film Beetlejuice 2, that means they can wrap up Beetlejuice 2, and we can see Beetlejuice 2 next year. And regardless of whether or not we get Beetlejuice 2 or not next year, I will review Beetlejuice next year, but I'm hoping it does come out next year. Either way, because this is a movie I've been highly anticipating. Hearing some of the stuff Tim Burton is saying about the practical effects work has actually made me very excited, and it feels like he's going to go back to his roots with this. I just love Michael Keaton's performance as Beetlejuice. I love it a lot. I love the practical effect work. I love the soundtrack, the score, the song choices. It's very entertaining. Hopefully we get more Beetlejuice in this movie. Don't get me wrong, Beetlejuice is one of my all-time favorite movies. The thing that would have made that movie better, and I'm not saying this is what holds the movie back, but the thing that really could have elevated this movie is if we got more Beetlejuice. I'm never opposed to having more Michael Keaton just in general, because Michael Keaton is one of my favorite actors. And I guess I could say, well, you know what? If there's a Batman movie that, besides the Batman that I love to watch this time of year, just because it's directed by Tim Burton and the gothic feeling and the soundtrack, it's probably Batman '89. Batman Returns, yeah, I would say so as well, even though it takes place around Christmas. But Batman '89, to me, is probably the Batman movie that I rewatch around October. Just because of how well Tim Burton captured the gothic sense of Gotham City. Batman Returns, I would say more of a November movie in between Halloween and Christmas. And Nightmare Before Christmas. I can't believe I almost forgot that one. That's another one I just recently rewatched. Nightmare Before Christmas, when you combine Halloween and Christmas together. And that's actually, I think I actually did a review on that almost 2 years ago. I could put the link in the chat for anyone that wants to recheck out that review. I know it's been a while since I've reviewed that movie, but I think my thoughts are pretty much still the same about that movie. That's a movie that just does not get old for me. A lot of movies really don't get old for me. I mean, I just said I still watch some Scooby Doo movies. I'm not somebody that like ages out of stuff really quickly. But yeah, Jack Skellington, the amount of work they put into that movie, the amount of puppets, the amount of like head structures they had to make for Jack Skellington, very impressive. Um, and the thing I love is I don't think this movie needs a sequel. I feel like Disney wants to do a sequel, but Tim Burton just doesn't want to budge because it's his baby, even though he's just a producer. But he wrote a poem that the movie is based on. People don't realize that Tim Burton, like, this was based off a poem he wrote when he worked for Disney in the early 80s. So and the Oogie Boogie, there's just something about Oogie Boogie that just freaks me out. And the interesting thing about Nightmare Before Christmas, I don't know if I can't remember if I said this in my review. I have to go back and rewatch it. But the interesting thing is this came out around the Disney Renaissance when Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin came out. And the movie was not a box office bomb, but it didn't make as much as the other ones. Yet, Nightmare Before Christmas is probably considered better than the majority of those Disney Renaissance movies and has more of a cult following than the majority of them. And look, I love the Disney Renaissance. I love most of those movies. But it is kind of true. I'm one of those people that love Nightmare Before Christmas. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I know I'm saying that about a lot of movies on here, but it's true. I love Halloween themed, horror themed, spooky themed stuff. So a lot of it's gonna be on my list. If I were to make a list of my top 100 favorite movies, there's gonna be some spooky horror themed, Halloween themed movies on there. Definitely if I do a top 200, but that would take way too much time to do. So I think that kind of sums up the childhood aspect as far as movies go. As far as shows go, besides Scooby Doo, there was Courage the Cowardly Dog. I'll be honest, Real Monsters from Nickelodeon. I only remember watching a few episodes of that. I think at that time when I was growing up, Nickelodeon, we had Hey Arnold, we had Rugrats. I'm sorry about my mic falling over. Hey Arnold, Rugrats, Cat Dog, Rocket Power, Doug. I think Ren and Stimpy was only on a few times. Same thing with Rocko's Modern Life. Angry Beavers was on a few times. Yeah, I think at that point, as I was getting into Nickelodeon, was growing up, I feel like Real Monsters phased out of Nickelodeon. So yeah, Courage the Cowardly Dog definitely. I remember, stupid dog, you make me look bad. That was actually the first Funko Pop I bought because I thought it was so cool. They had a Courage the Cowardly Dog one. And yeah, Courage the Cowardly Dog, the King Ramses episode used to freak me out. I think it was the animation they used on King Ramses, if you remember the Return the Slab guy. The Demon in the Mattress, that used to also freak me out. Freaky Fred, I feel like Freaky Fred, I know he's kind of a parody of Sweeney Todd, the barber guy, but still used to freak me the hell out. I remember I used to have a friend in middle school that, he also liked Courage the Cowardly Dog. He was fascinated by Freaky Fred. I feel like I haven't heard from that guy in quite some time. Anyways, trying to think of any other shows. I remember sometimes watching the Sabrina the Teenage Witch cartoon, but I don't think that was really horror. I really want to consider Yu-Gi-Oh horror. I mean, they use dueling monsters or dual monsters. Yu-Gi-Oh was the bomb back in the day. I love Yu-Gi-Oh. I still love Yu-Gi-Oh. I'll be honest, I still love Yu-Gi-Oh. I never grew out of it. But I remember like I used to love watching the Halloween horror themed episodes of some cartoons. For example, regular show, their Halloween episodes were probably my favorite regular show episodes. I'm trying to think what else. SpongeBob has had two pretty good Halloween stuff. Legends of Bikini Bottom, the stop motion one and the original one, where SpongeBob goes as the Flying Dutchman, and then the one where he becomes a teenage Gary. Pretty weird. And the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. How can we forget about it's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown? I hate that they don't show it on TV anymore. And I remember that inspired me to be a ghost, a sheet ghost in second grade, and it was the worst Halloween costume I ever did. It was a pain in the neck walking around with that sheet over my head. Just ugh. Worst decision I had ever made for a costume. But yeah, I love the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and poor Linus, he's weighing in the pumpkin patch. Poor Charlie Brown getting a bunch of rocks because he had a little trouble with the scissors. And I have it on DVD. I'm gonna watch it tomorrow because TV they don't show it anymore because I think Apple TV has the rights to the Peanuts gang. Curse you, streaming. But the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, I love watching. Trying to think anything else from my childhood. I remember there was this weird animated special called Scary Godmother. If you grew up watching Cartoon Network in like 2005 and 2006, you remember that weird Halloween special, Scary Godmother, Spooktacular, and The Revenge of Jimmy. Yo, that was some weird movies with weird animation, but I couldn't help but like watch it. And it was like, you know what? For some reason, there was never Halloween claymations similar to Christmas. You know how Christmas you have a year without Santa Claus. Santa Claus is coming to town. Rudolph and Frosty, Rudolph Shine New Year. There's really no Halloween claymations. I mean, yeah, you have the stop motion Nightmare Before Christmas. You have SpongeBob, Legends of Bikini Bottom. I know later on we got Coraline, Frankenweenie, Corpse Bride. But I know before that stuff came out, Christmas dominated the claymation stop motion Halloween stuff. But yeah, no, Scary Godmother. I mean, it's a Halloween guilty pleasure. That's all I'm gonna say. It was a Halloween guilty pleasure of mine as a kid. So let's get into the older days. So as I said, A Nightmare on Elm Street was basically my introduction to horror in the slasher genre. It's after that I started giving other horror movies a chance. There were some that were more psychological horror. For example, before I actually a couple weeks before I watched A Nightmare on Elm Street, I had watched at that movie club a movie from the early 1960s called Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and to me, this is one of my favorite movies from the 1960s. And this is one of those movies that made me fall in love with other kinds of movies. Because if I'm going to be completely honest, when it comes to movies, yeah, I know on this channel I talk a lot about franchise stuff, superhero movies, Jurassic Park, Transformers, some Harry Potter. In November, I do plan on talking about the Hunger Games movies. But one thing I've been trying to do more so on this channel has obviously been talking about older stuff, obviously Alfred Hitchcock stuff. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, to me, is one of those old movies that never gets old. And I didn't realize the story behind Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, the fact that Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, who are the main two actresses in that movie, did not like each other in real life. And the movie is about someone named Baby Jane Hudson, played by Bette Davis, who detests her more successful sister, Blanche. And Blanche, she's confined to her bed because of a car accident that happened. So she's in a wheelchair. And she's basically putting her sister through all this physical and mental torture. And I'm like, this is like a perfect horror movie without, the blood and gore and like the scary stuff happening. Because it's like this is basically like a house of horror right now for this woman. And the sister who's putting her through this, she's just going insane. She's like having like a midlife crisis, I would say. She's like pretending she's like a little kid again, like singing that song, I've written a letter to daddy. By the way, if you have never seen Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, go watch that movie. It is a phenomenal movie. I love that movie. Another movie that I also watched, that I wouldn't say is like pure horror, but like is obviously a thriller, would obviously be Rear Window. I watched that around Halloween for the first time at my middle school movie club. I also watched this movie called The Haunting from like 1963. I got to go back and rewatch that movie because I remember the first time I watched it, I didn't think much of it, but I feel like I need to rewatch it. I rewatched it years later, and I was like, this is a solid movie. Maybe I'll go back and rewatch that one day. But yeah, some of these movies I did watch like at a movie club. The Bad Seed I also watched beforehand. That was like kind of similar to Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It's like you kind of got this horror story where like where a little kid's like committing all these murders and crimes, and she's not feeling bad about it. And she's putting her mom through mental torture, I guess you would say. But let's get into some of the more Halloween themed movies. Let's get into the more horror themed stuff. Stuff that I definitely have to watch around October. And we'll start with a movie that I reviewed last year, The Evil Dead. One of the early horror movies that I watched that freaked me out. And I remember I watched this movie, I think it was my first year in college. I watched it on a Saturday night around midnight. And this movie freaked me the hell out. I think one of my friends said like that movie freaked them out. And that was still around the time where I was still trying to get used to horror, so I didn't really know how to feel about The Evil Dead. I went into it expecting just a good movie because I knew it was directed by Sam Raimi because I love the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. And yeah, like some of the stuff that happens is to these young adults that are in this cabin in the woods, all the stuff that they're going through, just freaky. And I heard the stories about when this movie was being made that like it was not an easy environment to work in. Then I later watched Evil Dead 2, and I actually liked Evil Dead 2 right off the spot. I wasn't kind of crazy how they kind of changed things at the beginning of the movie because obviously it's supposed to be a continuation, but they kind of omitted some characters that were in the previous movie. But I love that movie. Army of Darkness, I'll be honest, it's my least favorite of the Evil Dead trilogy. I still have to watch Evil Dead Rises. I didn't get a chance to watch that one this year. But I still like the movie. It's definitely a more horror action themed movie. Night of the Living Dead, I also watched around this time from the 1960s. And I'll be honest, the zombie genre is not my favorite of the horror movies. It's never really been something I've enjoyed, but there's some zombie movies that I like a lot. I love Dawn of the Dead from 1978 and also the Zack Snyder version. George A. Romero, he also directed this movie, Night of the Living Dead. I love his version of Dawn of the Dead as well. Dawn of the Dead's probably... Actually, no, Shaun of the Dead is my favorite zombie movie. Shaun of the Dead is a hilarious movie. That's my favorite zombie movie of all time. I enjoy the hell out of that movie. I find it funny. And this is, to me, probably how I would see... If we had a zombie apocalypse happening, I would probably be in that boat with Shaun of the Dead. I would probably be with those characters. Because that's how I would probably fight off the zombie apocalypse. I would be Simon Pegg's character, Sean, probably, in that movie. But hey, that would mean I would probably survive it. Although I don't know if I would go to a pub to help fight off the zombies, I honestly have no idea. And Dawn of the Dead from 2004. And look, this I know people, Zack Snyder, people are kind of sick and tired of hearing Zack Snyder's name and all that. But I will say he made a really good zombie movie with Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is probably one of the best horror remakes out there. And I know it's got its differences from the original as well, which makes it an even better movie than a lot of these remakes. But I enjoyed Dawn of the Dead. Yeah, both versions. I also love Zombieland. Emma Stone, Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, Abigail Breslin. You can't go wrong with that crew. Bill Murray's cameo, best cameo in a movie. That's probably another realistic take on a zombie genre, in my opinion. Like that's how I probably would be like during a zombie apocalypse. I would probably be Jesse Eisenberg's character in that movie. I feel like the more modern zombie movies are really good. To me, I probably would be more so in that boat. And I gotta rewatch Zombieland because my mind was blanking on Jesse Eisenberg's character's name, but Columbus. In Woody Harrelson was Tallahassee. Yeah, I would definitely be in that crew right there. Yeah, that was another movie. I watched a lot of these around the same time. That 2016, but like time frame. Well, actually, no. A Nightmare on Elm Street was 2014 because the beginning of my senior year of high school. That 2015, 2016 era was when I watched a lot of these horror movies for the first time. The Shining. I really didn't know what to make of The Shining at first. That movie used to freak me out. But no, Shining's another great one. Jack Nicholson gives an awesome performance, and when the kid is chanting "Red Rum," that's just something that freaks me out. And I rewatched that movie back in September because I like to start Halloween off early, and I don't know how even a family, even if you had a family bigger than the three of them that was in that movie. I don't know how anyone can stay in a hotel all by himself, a big hotel like that. And I don't know. At times they would let the kid just go around random corridors. It's like you don't know who's trying to break into this hotel, even with a snowstorm. Or like even some people. What if a wild animal broke in there? It's possible. You've heard stories of bears, getting into houses. So yeah, The Shining was another one I watched around that time. And Halloween with Michael Myers. Now I reviewed Halloween last year. If you guys want, I can put the link to that review as well. I'll put that link in there if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, Halloween. I remember watching this movie, not really knowing much about it. I kind of like at the time I kind of tried blanking out spoilers. I had no idea that Halloween was going to be about. I had no idea that about Michael Myers. Like I knew Michael Myers based off the actor who voiced Shrek. But yeah, Michael Myers, another horror icon. Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, awesome. And look, I will admit, I don't care enough for the characters that got killed off. I mean, her friend Linda, that was like, Lindsay, this dog is annoying. It basically, to me, that established the characters who are making poor choices, who are acting immature, inappropriately, they get what's coming to them. They got what was coming to them because they were not prepared. They were not being responsible, and they basically got what was coming to them. And Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Laurie, was the only one that made the correct decisions. But to me, it's Donald Pleasence's performance in that movie that to me is S tier acting. That to me is some of the best acting. His talks about evil, about Michael Myers, like the character Dr. Loomis to me is one of the best movie characters, one of my favorite movie characters. Just his talks about evil, about like Michael Myers, how he spent half his life trying to save him, and the other half of Michael Myers, well, not his life, but like his imprisonment, trying to keep him locked up. To me, it's just that is incredible. It is incredible acting. And I give a lot of props to Donald Pleasance for giving such a great performance. As far as the Halloween sequels go, Halloween 2 is okay. Season of the Witch is, in my opinion, garbage. The other sequels, I mean, Halloween 4 is not bad. Halloween 20 years later, it's okay. Halloween Resurrection is just pure garbage. I still haven't really watched the more recent Halloween movies. The 2018 one, I heard that one was pretty good. I don't know if I would watch the other two. I've heard really horrible stuff about Halloween's Ends. But my favorite slasher movie series, I think I've said this before, and I even did an article in the Movie Nerds about this, is the Scream franchise. As I said before, Scream is my favorite horror movie ever, the 1996 one. Those characters are my favorite in a horror movie. The thing is, it's that it does it unique. It's meta on how it's basically it's like meta commentary on the slasher genre, but also it's like, you know, they're breaking molds. They're trying to break stereotypes with the slasher genre with horror movies, and they do such a great job with it. The only Scream movie I'm not crazy about is Scream 3, but even that movie has its really good moments. And I gotta open a window. It's really hot today, so I'm gonna open my window. So I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. But yeah, Scream 4 is okay. Not the biggest fan of it, but you know what? I can watch it. Scream 5 and 6 to me is how you bring back a franchise with new characters, pay respect to the older characters, and like set things up to make things more interesting. And yeah, I get it. People get sick and tired of, oh, no, another person with a ghost face mask. But you know what? I'm entertained by these movies. I love this franchise. I really do. Actually, you know what? Let's see. I'm going to post the Halloween link right here. You know, the Scream franchise to me is my favorite horror franchise in general. It's the one where the sequels, yeah, they're still not as good as the original, but you know, they're still enjoyable. And you know what? They're still good movies. And Scream 3, I can still consider better than the vast majority of horror movie sequels. And I'm not kidding. It just feels a lot better. They just feel respectful. You know, you're not just killing off characters for the sake of killing off characters. I mean, yeah, there's a body count, but you know, a lot of these characters they lived until the fifth Scream movie. It sucked when Randy got killed in Scream 2, but still, you know what? I have a lot of fun with these Scream movies. To me, they're the most rewatchable horror movies, even despite the killing scenes. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a hard one for me to watch. I mean, I enjoy it, but I don't know. To me, this is the one that has always made me the most uncomfortable as far as horror movies go. It's not a bad movie. I still enjoy it. But it's to me, it's probably the most brutal one. Maybe people will disagree with me, but this is the one that's the most brutal for me to watch. And the thing is, this is shorter than a lot of the horror movies, and yet to me, it's the one that I feel like takes the longest to get through. Um, I don't know. Maybe one day I gotta talk more about it. I'm trying to think like what other horror movies. Obviously as far as directors go, Tim Burton without a doubt. Tim Burton movies, Beetlejuice, the Batman movies, Edward Scissorhands, Sleepy Hollow, Corpse Bride. He produced Nightmare Before Christmas. Tim Burton is probably the guy to direct these kind of stuff. And here's the interesting thing. So obviously we know Johnny Depp has been in a lot of Tim Burton movies. He always plays the wacky characters in Tim Burton movies. And yet his start was A Nightmare on Elm Street, and he played a normal character in that movie. So he did get a start basically through horror. So that's it. That's basically another thing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I forgot to include Monsters Inc. as a childhood movie, but Monsters Inc. is a movie I can watch any time of the year. I mean, I know they like to show it on Freeform as a Halloween thing or like Disney Channel, but I really don't know if I would consider that much of a movie that I need to watch around Halloween. I can watch it whenever. Same thing in Monsters University. Um, oh yeah, there's some movies based on classic monsters. So I got into the Universal horror movies around the same time that I was getting into a lot of these movies, that 2016 window. I watched Frankenstein 1931 for the first time. And then 2017, I watched Young Frankenstein. And I love the hell out of Young Frankenstein. It's one of my favorite comedies from Mel Brooks. Gene Wilder as Dr. Frankenstein, who doesn't want to be associated with his relative who caused the monster back in the day. Hilarious, just a funny comedy. I love watching it. I love how it's a black and white movie, even though it was made in the 1970s. Hilarious movie. Another must watch around Halloween. The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, same thing. A movie that I probably should have said in the childhood part, but to me, this is more action adventure than horror. But you know what? You got the Mummy in there, and with the Mummy, you can't go wrong. You definitely can't go wrong with that. And that character of Benny, the one that kept betraying O'Connell and Evie and all of them. Talk about a character that like you wanted to just get what was coming to him, but you have to wait until the end. Incredible full ending to that character. And yeah, it's a little cheesy. But you know what? I think it did its job pretty well. And then there's Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman playing Dracula, Winona Ryder in there, Keanu Reeves. And Keanu Reeves, as much as I love Keanu Reeves, he was miscast in that movie as Jonathan. I'm sorry. Winona Ryder, Gary Oldman, Anthony Hopkins. Everyone's acting circles around Keanu Reeves in that movie. Let's just be real. As much as I love Keanu, and I know he's improved his craft of acting since then, he should not have been in that movie. Obviously, Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, who directed The Godfather, The Outsiders, Apocalypse Now. Very good movie. Obviously, if you want a more entertaining horror movie that you might be okay with your kids watching as long as you're watching with them, obviously Young Frankenstein and The Mummy from 1999 are the movies to go to. If you want a more mature take, I would probably go with the 1992 Dracula movie. I also remember The Exorcist. Now, the first time I watched The Exorcist was actually in January of 2019 during my break from college before I went back to college for the next semester. And that movie freaked me out. I watched that movie the end of September this year. And that movie still freaks me out. I actually watched The Conjuring before I watched The Exorcist. I saw The Conjuring a year before I watched The Exorcist. And to me, The Conjuring did it very well. James Wan did an incredible job with that movie. And The Conjuring I would say didn't freak me out, but it definitely made me feel unnerving. But that's a movie I would rewatch more so than The Exorcist, even though The Exorcist I would say is the better movie. But I think The Conjuring it might be the more enjoyable movie. Like you always hear that where someone says, this movie's better, but on the other hand, this movie's more enjoyable. That's kind of how I feel about The Conjuring and Exorcist. One's better, but one's more enjoyable. And The Conjuring had a pretty good sequel with The Conjuring 2. I still haven't seen The Conjuring The Devil Made Me Do It yet. I heard some mixed thoughts about it, but you know what? I make my own opinion. I'll see how I feel about it when I eventually watch it. Just trying to think if there's any other horror monster themed movies to talk about. This is probably not gonna be a long stream. As far as comic book movies go, I would say the Wesley Snipes Blade movies are probably the ones to watch. I know I said before Batman '89 and maybe Batman Returns and the Batman because that movie, the beginning of the movie takes place around Halloween. Probably Blade. Those fun action movies with like vampires and stuff. I kind of just realized that I do watch Blade and its sequels around Halloween. I don't think I've ever really watched Blade around time that wasn't Halloween. I think maybe one time I watched it closer to the end of August, but I feel like nowadays we start celebrating Halloween or start getting into the Halloween mood in the middle to end of August. So does that really even count? I honestly have no idea. But yeah, that was another one. Blade 2 is actually a very underrated sequel. Another one I gotta go back and watch. A lot of these like I've seen recently that I rewatch once a year, and then there's some where I gotta go back and rewatch. I feel like it's been ages since I've seen them. Oh, I also forgot to include with the zombie movies. Return of the Living Dead. That's a funny zombie movie, in my opinion. That is funny to watch. Also, the live action Scooby Doo movies, not the ones that were on Cartoon Network, the ones that James Gunn wrote. I can watch those any time of the year, but I definitely would prefer watching them around October, September-ish. And it's weird. The first one came out the summer of 2002. Second one came out, I think it was like March 2004 or February 2004. End of winter, beginning of spring ish. And you know what? Those are guilty pleasures for me. You know what? Yeah, they're not the best movies, but you know what? I love the cast in that movie. Matthew Lillard is perfect as Shaggy. Sarah Michelle Gellar is perfect as Daphne. Uh, I have Mr. Bean in there as the owner of Spooky Island in the first one. Only thing I'm not crazy about, and I know people don't like Scrappy, and that's fine, and I'm not the biggest fan of Scrappy either, but I feel like when James Gunn made Scrappy the villain, I feel like to me that was the first pure example of character bashing. For those of you who don't know what character bashing is, maybe I've explained it on this channel, but I'm going to explain it again. Character bashing is basically where an author takes a pre-established character and writes them in a very negative light. And sometimes it's justified. If you watch Harry Potter or read Harry Potter and you hate Dolores Umbridge, chances are you're going to write a fan fiction if you're a fanfic writer and bash the heck out of Dolores Umbridge's character. Basically, like have the worst stuff happen to this character. Same thing if you don't like Draco Malfoy. If you're into, for example, Naruto fan fiction, chances are you're going to bash Sasuke Uchiha's character if you don't like Sasuke. Sometimes it's, I guess, justified, but then sometimes it's like, okay, you're just bashing characters for no good reason. For example, Ron Weasley. Why is Ron Weasley going through character bashing in Harry Potter fan fiction? He's one of the best Harry Potter characters. Then again, I feel like a lot of them basically watch the movies and don't read the books where he's a way better and smarter character. But that's kind of what James Gunn kind of did with Scrappy. I mean, it's been kind of building up for a while. People were writing Scrappy for a while, even Cartoon Network. But anyways, back to Scooby-Doo movies and Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. That's so cool seeing some of these monsters in real life, like the Tar Monster, Black Knight Ghost, Captain Cutler's Ghost. It almost reminded me of a live-action Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights, where you fight old monsters from like Scooby-Doo, the new Scooby-Doo movies, or the Scooby-Doo show. That's basically what I'll call Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. A live-action adaptation with some big differences, obviously, of Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights. You have some of the same monsters in that game. Black Knight Ghost, Captain Cutler's Ghost, Tar Monster, the Zombie. Like, you got some of the same monsters that are in the game, so it kind of makes sense. It might not make sense to some people. But yeah, those are some other childhood movies I love to watch. Sometimes the Goonies I watch around this time. Lost Boys, definitely. I'll get into Goonies in a second, but I want to get into the Lost Boys. To me, the ending of Lost Boys, along with the ending of A Nightmare on Elm Street, was Home Alone before Home Alone's ending, where they set traps in this house to prevent the scary guys. In Nightmare on Elm Street, it was Freddy Krueger. In The Lost Boys, it was the vampires. Obviously, a lot more menacing than two idiot bandits called the Wet Bandits. But yeah, The Lost Boys had a great soundtrack. To me, I know Joel Schumacher is known for directing Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, but I'm always going to love The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys, to me, is my favorite Joel Schumacher movie of all time. I find it to be entertaining, and it's just pure 80s. Like, it's like a movie that obviously takes place in the perfect time period. Yeah, it takes place in the 80s. A lot of changes happening in society, the fashion style, and all that. I will say, Keith Sutherland's character used to freak me out. And the Frog Brothers, like, I don't know what I would do if I met the Frog Brothers in real life. Those who don't know who the Frog Brothers are, it's like Corey Feldman and Jameson Newlander's characters. You know, they play the Frog Brothers. They hunt vampires while running a comic book store. I don't know. Those are like two characters that I probably would love to meet in real life. But I don't know how I would react to them. I honestly don't. You know, Lost Boys is another one that I love watching around this time of year. And you should definitely go watch it. A House on Haunted Hill, another old one. Vincent Price in the movie. And hey, Ferris, thank you for stopping by. I've heard about this movie. I need to check it out. If you know if it's on any streaming service, let me know. No, Ferris. But yeah, I've heard of The Faculty. I've heard some good stuff about it. I'm pretty sure. Like, I've heard. I mean, he's got a 6.6 on IMDb, but you know, that's pretty solid. I gotta check it out one day. Thank you for the recommendation. But, you know, The Lost Boys, just another excellent movie. Probably my favorite vampire movie. I'm gonna be honest. Lost Boys is probably my favorite vampire movie. I just enjoy that movie. But back to House on Haunted Hill. Vincent Price. There's just something about when Vincent Price is talking that it's like it just hooks you on. And House on Haunted Hill. That movie, I'm not gonna lie, that's probably one of those like old movies that kind of freaks me out. And the thing that freaks me out in that movie, it's probably what happens at the end of the movie. Where his character, Frederick, when he basically uses a skeleton to lure his wife into that vat of acid that basically melts people's skin and hair off. To me, that's just chilling that a house has something like that. It's like, okay, how is it that a house can have that, and yet the ground around it, it's just like, I mean, I know they explained that like what specifically gets burned off, but still, that just freaks me out. That scene. If you, that's another one you gotta watch. Yeah, I remember he was in Pearl Harbor, Hollywood Homicide and Watch. I remember watching Pearl Harbor back in high school. Another movie we kind of had to get a permission slip to watch, but that was for like social studies. Yeah, I remember he was in Pearl Harbor. Oppenheimer, yeah. You know, I was very surprised when I saw him in Oppenheimer. I was like, oh wow, oh, Josh Hartnett's in this movie. I mean, a lot of people were in Oppenheimer. I mean, the guy that played Roderick in Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Josh from Drake and Josh was in there. But yeah, a lot of people were in there. As far as like modern day horror, I know I've been talking a lot about classic horror. I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of hard for me to get into some of the more modern day horror because a lot of it's sequels now, and I don't know, some of the idea concepts just don't land. I started getting into the Saw movies, you know, the first movie James Wan directed. Uh Saw freaks me out. Like the puzzles that these poor people are put into where like most of them get killed, that just freaks me out. When in the first one, when the guy's like chopping his foot off to get free, I was like, oh gosh, he really had to do that. Man, talk about a really uncomfortable scene to watch. It really was. Trying to see what else I like to watch around this time of year. Or play video games. I'm trying to think. If I were to say like which ones I have to watch 100%, Scream, Halloween, Hocus Pocus, Beetlejuice, Young Frankenstein. At least the first two Evil Dead movies, the first two Halloween Town movies, The Lost Boys, uh, House on Haunted Hill, definitely. I feel like there's so many to list, but like those ones, I definitely have to watch. Um, Friday the 13th. I'm not the biggest Friday the 13th fan. I mean, I enjoy the first movie, but I don't know. To me, it's like the most bizarre Friday the 13th movies, the bizarre Jason movies, that the ones that are just so bad they're hilarious, that are the most rewatchable. Sometimes I feel like if a movie's so bad it's good, I can watch it, except for Halloween Resurrection. I don't know what they were thinking about that movie. That was the one where, you know, they killed Laurie Strode off at the beginning in a very stupid, lazy way. Buster Rhymes is the main character, and he's like putting these people through a reality show. He's watching kung fu movies, and he's using kung fu on Michael Myers. Just really cringy stuff. I don't know what they were thinking with that movie, and I feel like that was around the time where horror movies were MTVified. Like that's like the best way to put it. I need to watch Dust Till Dawn as well. So here's the thing: I've watched a lot of scary stuff, but there's like I've also missed a lot of scary stuff. Oh wait, how did I go this whole video without talking about Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho? To me, we wouldn't even get the Halloweens, Nightmare on Elm Streets, the Friday the 13th, the Screams of the world without Psycho. To me, that movie just You have that house where, like, mother's looking down, she's just screaming at her son. You feel bad for Norman Bates at first, but then you realize Norman Bates, is he complicit with all this? You find out it's Norman Bates that's committing all these crimes and murders, and just like the way he's killing people. And that house, like, to me, Psycho is probably one of the most chilling movies. That's another movie I need to watch around this time of year. Like, there's some movies that, like, even if they're not like horror, they're just some movies because they're just edge of your seat. They're very chilling. You can't help but watch. There's been some franchises that I haven't got that I just couldn't get into. I like the first Final Destination. I have to watch the other ones. I've never gotten into the Paranormal Activity movies. I just never did. I saw the first one. I was like, that's enough for me. It's weird. I was saying before, I watch paranormal YouTube, like, the haunted part of YouTube, but it's just, I can just never get into those movies. If you like the Paranormal Activity movies, all the power to you. It's just, I just don't enjoy those movies. Or at least the first one, I just didn't care for. I know I've talked about The Crucible before. I recommend you check that movie out. Are there any like Salem Witch Trial movies out there that I would recommend? I don't recommend Hocus Pocus 2. I recently, last Saturday, was rewatching a Disney Channel old movie I haven't seen in ages. Like, I think it's My Mom's Dating a Vampire, and I kind of forgot just how toxic some of those kids were in that movie. It's like, is this like the depiction of teenagers and kids back in the day? Just really dumb and poor. I don't know. The early 2000s, late 90s was a very interesting time. It's just, I'm trying to see if there's anything else from. Yeah, I know Quentin Tarantino is also in there. I didn't know he wrote it. Yeah, I definitely gotta check it out now. Oh yeah, Ghostbusters. It might be because because I've only watched Ghostbusters a couple times around Halloween. Other times I watch Ghostbusters any time of the year. But Ghostbusters, such a hilarious movie, a very entertaining movie. Something strange in the neighborhood. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. An interesting thing. So this summer, after summer camp was done, before I went back to working at my school, in New York City, there are movie tours you can do where they filmed famous movies where certain things were filmed. And we went to the Ghostbusters firehouse where, the Ghostbusters had their hideout, their base. And it's actually a real firehouse in real life, and it's like decorated Ghostbusters. And it was so cool to see it. And to me, that was like the highlight of the trip. Like, we've seen places that were like Elf, Spider-Man, and Friends and other stuff were being filmed, but to me, the Ghostbusters thing was super cool. Ghostbusters 2 was an okay movie. I'm gonna be honest, I still need to watch Ghostbusters Afterlife. I just didn't have the time when that movie came out. I'm gonna watch that movie soon, though. Don't worry. Ghostbusters 2016, I never bothered to watch, and had nothing to do with the fact that it starred women. I know it was very controversial at the time. It's just didn't really appeal to me, and the special effects reminded me of the special effects from the 2003 Haunted Mansion movie starring Eddie Murphy. And that movie has enjoyable moments, but it's not my cup of tea. And I still haven't watched the new Haunted Mansion. I just don't have the desire to. Maybe on a rainy day, don't feel like watching much of anything. Maybe I'll put it on in the background while I'm doing work at home or something. Um, So we've talked about movies. I'm going to take a little break from talking about some movies, although this also ties into TV shows, and get into something else from my childhood, the Goosebump books. If you read Goosebumps, let me know, and let me know what your favorite Goosebump book is. There's a lot of them. Some of them I remember a lot better than others. Some of my favorite ones were the piano lesson one, where piano lessons can be murder or deadly. What was the title of it? The one with the masked mutant. I always loved that one because I loved comic book heroes. But yeah, Goosebump books. I remember I used to read those a lot. And as a kid, my sister had some Goosebump books. I read them, and I fell in love with Goosebumps. I would check them out at the library. Then I remember Cartoon Network was showing the Goosebumps show, and I remember watching that. And remember when Hayden? You everyone remember when Hayden Christensen was on Goosebumps? Before he was in Star Wars. It was which one was it? Oh my goodness. It was Night of the Living Dummy. It was one of the Night of the Living Dummy ones that Hayden Christensen was in. Oh man. Goosebumps, man. I used to love the introduction. The one with the mask where the girl wore the mask and she couldn't get it off. There were a lot of good ones. I don't specifically remember the titles, but I just remember. I know there's a new Goosebumps on Disney Plus. I should go check it out. I don't know if it's gonna be as good as the original. You just can't beat the original. And the thing that always stood out to me with the live action Goosebumps TV series is the introduction. I just love the introduction. I'm trying to think, are there any other horror books? I remember reading Frankenstein back in high school. And the Frankenstein movie we ended up watching was the one with Kenneth Branagh. That was a weird one to watch. Actually, I just remembered another perfect movie to watch around this time. The Rocky Horror Picture Show. I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Tim Curry's just awesome in there. And the thing about the Rocky Horror Picture Show, it's the songs. I just love the hell out of the songs. Like Dr. Frankenfurter was a bizarre character, entertaining character, but the songs, I just love the songs so much in that movie. I mean, the right from the beginning when that lip is singing about the science fiction double feature, um, then you got Sweet Transvestite, um, got the time. You also got before that the Time Warp. Let's do the Time Warp again. Some songs, obviously, not for all kids, but there's just some that are just incredible. Yeah, that's another one to watch. It's like I watch all these most of these movies at least once a year, and it's like I always feel like I'm forgetting something because sometimes there's a year where you don't have the chance to watch one of these movies. I know one year I didn't get a chance to watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show. One year I didn't get a chance to watch Evil Dead 2. Last year I didn't get a chance to watch Young Frankenstein around Halloween. It's like, I feel like there's so much horror stuff to watch. And I'm not just talking about in October, even in September, because there's some days where you just don't have the time to watch horror stuff or Halloween stuff or spooky stuff. And it's like the great thing about the horror spooky genre, we all got our different takes. We all got, some of us might prefer slasher, some of us might prefer stuff like The Exorcist and The Conjuring. Some of us might prefer, monsters, Young Frankenstein, The Mummy, the Universal Classic Monsters. By the way, I will say this. I remember going to the Universal Classic Monsters restaurant at Universal Studios. Pretty cool place. I will say it's a pretty cool place. Also the Mummy ride there is fantastic. And there's some movies that people prefer watching around this time of year. I mean, I know there's gonna be some people that will do a Harry Potter marathon on Halloween. I mean, for me, I could do Harry Potter any time of the year. I know in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, it was Halloween when like the troll attacked and you saw those jack-o'-lanterns like floating up in the air. And yes, I know Harry Potter's parents did get killed by Voldemort on Halloween in the movies and books. But yeah, no, for some people they'll they might watch all the Batman movies around Halloween. A lot of these movies that I've been sharing today, these are the movies that I personally watch around Halloween, the movies that I would rather watch around Halloween. If you got a certain franchise or certain movies that you prefer watching this time of year, put it in the chat. Yeah, I was talking about the Scream movies, Ferris. Yeah, I was talking about them. Hey Ferris, if you want a link, let me know. Let me know if you want a link. I'll let you on. I could probably send you one. If you want to come on. If you want to come on, that's fine. If you want to stay in the chat, that's fine as well. But yeah, Scream movies. Scream is my favorite horror movie of all time, the original 1996 one. Kevin Williamson wrote an awesome screenplay. He just wrote such an awesome screenplay. Scream 2, pretty good movie. I did a review on that a couple weeks ago. Scream for 3, not crazy about, as I said before. But you know what? Better than the majority of horror sequels still. Scream 4 is okay. It's just that whole thing with like Emma Roberts being the killer. I've just never been keen on. Scream 5 and 6, I enjoy a whole lot. I'm still torn as to which I prefer more, Scream 5 or Scream 6. It's like both have their strengths. They also have their weaknesses. Although I love that Scream 6 takes place around Halloween. I was like, about time. But yeah, no, honestly, I know people might prefer Nightmare on Elm Street, but to me, Scream is probably my favorite one. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, thank you for watching and being in the chat. Is there any other is there other thoughts about Scream that you want me to get into? Or like any other horror movies that you want to hear me talk about or that I might have seen? I'm trying to think like what else with Scream. And I just love the mystery aspect. I will say probably my least favorite opening of a Scream movie is probably Scream 2. I don't know, that theater scene was just so obnoxious where all the people are dressed up as like Ghostface and then just like running around, just like doing this, doing that. I'm like, no way I can ever see a movie in that kind of setting. I just don't know if I can ever do that. Trying to think. What else about Scream that I haven't really touched upon? I think Scream did a better job of passing the torch to the newer characters. Oh, wait. Is this true? Holy crap. I gotta look this up. Okay, I'm gonna. That stream's still going, but I gotta look this up. Oh, no. Oh, man. That is true. Okay, so I hate to interrupt the stream, but I do want to address it. Matthew Perry, who was in Friends, he was also Courtney Cox's co-star. died today at the age of 54 from drowning. I'm not going to pull up the article, but wow. I can't believe that. 54, that's young. And this isn't the first time I've interrupted a stream to address this. Last year, well, beginning of this year, unfortunately, we remember Uche, who is part of Geeks and Gamers, passed away, and Matthew Perry. That's sad. That really is sad. And I was saying before, when I was doing the movie tour, we were stopping by some of the places where they filmed the Friends stuff, Friends, including the apartment. And I remember my mom was so excited she got a picture in front of it. And now this has happened, and my mom, I know she's at a party right now. I'm gonna have to let her know later. That's sad. It's really sad. And I have a lot of friends that love Friends that are obviously heartbroken about this probably. My thoughts and prayers to his loved ones. That's really sad. Yeah. I'm gonna try to get back into continuing the stream. Yeah, no, that's really heartbreaking. Okay, so I'm gonna try to get back on track with this. If I was gonna rank the Scream movies, I would probably go the first Scream, then Scream. I'll do Scream 5 right now, maybe, because that's the one that has Nev Campbell in it. Scream 6, Scream 2, Scream 4, and then Scream 3. If I was to rank all the Scream movies, to me, the first Scream's like one of my top 40, maybe 35 favorite movies of all time. It's kind of hard to rank movies, but it's definitely one of my all-time, definitely my favorite horror movie of all time. You know what? I have a Nightmare on Elm Street to thank for that. Has there ever, Ferris, I'm kind of curious, has there ever been like a slasher icon that freaked you out? To me, it was always Leatherface and Freddy Krueger. Maybe because of just of how they looked. Like Ghostface and Michael Myers were just guys in a mask. But it's like, I know Leatherface, like what his mask is made of, but his mask was terrifying. He had a chainsaw. And Freddy Krueger, I don't know. The fact that he just talked so much compared to Michael Myers, who was very quiet. Man, I'm still trying to process what just happened. Chucky, okay. I have a confession to make. I have not seen any of the Child's Play movies. I need to watch them. I have to. I have not watched them yet. Another one that just came to mind, Gremlins. Gremlins, I love Gremlins. I feel like Gremlins is a movie that I prefer watching around Christmas because it takes place around Christmas. So that's one that like I don't think I've ever really watched around Halloween. Maybe November. Christmas, definitely I've watched that one. This is actually an underrated one. Drag Me to Hell, starring Megan Fox. Megan Fox actually gave a pretty good performance. That movie's actually very underrated in my opinion. And I think it actually deserves more love. Maybe it's just my personal opinion. Everyone's gonna be different, but I feel like Jennifer. No, not Drag Me to Hell. It's Jennifer's Body. No, Drag Me to Hell was the Sam Raimi one. They both came out the same year. Drag Me to Hell is the Sam Raimi one. That was okay. I wasn't a big fan of it. It's Jennifer's Body, the one that starred Megan Fox. Sorry for the confusion. Megan Fox is very underrated in that movie. I highly recommend you check that movie out. It's not a long movie. It's very underrated in that movie. I know that came out right after Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, where she got a lot of flack for her acting. And it was before she got fired from Transformers for saying stuff about Megan Fox, not Megan Fox, about Michael Bay. My mind's jumbled right now, but yeah, Jennifer's Body is very underrated. That doesn't get talked enough about, in my opinion. Trying to see what else. I feel like I've covered a lot in this stream, and we've only gone like an hour and 30 minutes. Trying to think, there's anything else. Because there's some horror movies that I will watch, but I have not watched around October. Trying to think, there's anything else. If there's any other ones you want to hear more additional thoughts on, Ferris, you can let me know. Because there's no, I haven't seen Urban Legend. There's some, like, again, I've seen a lot, but there's some I still need to watch. What else? I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Otherwise, I might start wrapping it up. If there's anything, because I know Ferris, you came in late. If there's any other movies that you might not have heard me cover before that you want to hear my additional thoughts on, please, you can let me know. I've covered Young Frankenstein, funny movie, Gene Wilder. Are there any other horror comedies besides Rocky Horror Picture Show, Young Frankenstein, Return of the Living Dead? I will say that was a pretty dark ending to that movie. If you know how hilarious that movie was. I mean, the Alien and Aliens. I mean, I know they're kind of horror, though Aliens is more action packed. I watch those more so any time of the year. Same thing with Jaws. I know Jaws is considered horror, but I watch that mostly in the summer. Coraline is one I got to rewatch. Coraline, fantastic movie. Corpse Bride, I rewatched for the first time in a while. Good movie, not as iconic as the Night Before Christmas. Sixth Sense. So yeah, I want to gotta rewatch Sixth Sense. I love Sixth Sense. M. Night Shyamalan's masterpiece. That twist at the end with Bruce Willis's character really gets me. The one thing I will say about the Sixth Sense, and this is just something that now I observed as someone who is a counselor, after school teacher. There's just some things in that movie that just drive me insane as a counselor, even though I love that movie. I mean, these bullies locking up that kid Cole. I mean, like, I have no tolerance for bullying as a counselor, and that just drives me insane. Like that scene alone, I'm like, yeah, no, kids, yeah. Yeah, if you were in my class or group, I love to see you try and pull off. I know I was at a birthday party, but still. Um, but yeah, no, that's a great movie, The Sixth Sense. Um, the stuttering Stanley scene. That one is I always found to be bizarre. And when the teacher just like gets annoyed, it's like, listen, I get it. We can lose our temper at times. I get it. Some things get on our skin, but it's like the stuff like the way he lost his temper at Cole. No matter how annoying he gets, that's a big no-no. I know Haley Joel Osment. I don't know if you ever heard of this movie called Secondhand Lions. This is another movie club movie from when I was in movie club that I love, starring Michael Caine. And I forget who the other guy was that starred that movie, but basically Haley Joel Osment starred as this boy that was kind of getting neglected by his mom. Mom was just partying around with other random guys. And I remember, and like he was getting close to his, no, but not grandpas, his uncles. It was his uncles. You know, they got a lion in there as well. I know he was in that movie. I'm going to see if he was in anything else. Well, he's 35 years old. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm going to see what else he was in. Oh, I didn't know he was. Yeah, he was Forrest Gump Jr. in Forrest Gump. I always forget that. That's like a box of chocolates. Artificial Intelligence. The Country Bears. Oh god, I want to forget that. He was Mowgli in the Jungle Book 2. He was in Kevin Smith's Tusk. Yeah, it's like he was not in anything for quite a while. He was Casey Jones in the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie. Not the new one that came out, the one based off the Nickelodeon show. I'm trying to see if he was like in any TV. You know, just like guest appearances on TV shows. I mean, it looks like he's getting back into more stuff. I mean, which is good, you know. Look, sometimes people need to take a break from stuff. Like, sometimes you just. Like sometimes, like, actors just need a break. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, Sixth Sense. So there's so many movies. There's so much stuff. It's like I feel like I'm forgetting stuff because it's like I have my personal favorites, I have my must watches, and then there's the ones where it's like, oh, you almost forget it. This ain't a Halloween movie, but the Karate Kid, the scene at the Halloween party where Daniel gets back at Johnny Lawrence. Johnny Lawrence and the rest of his Cobra Kais are beating up Daniel. And by the way, Daniel dressed as some guy taking as a shower. Weird costume choice, but okay. You know what? I love the Karate Kid. It's one of my top 20 favorite movies of all time, so I don't care. Then Mr. Miyagi comes in and he starts kicking the crap out of the Cobra Kais. To me, that's one of the best scenes to take place on Halloween in a movie. There's just something about it that I just enjoy watching. Just seeing Johnny in the Cobra Kai's getting what they deserve. And look, I get it. Daniel wasn't perfect either. Both of them made their poor choices in that movie, but almost beating Daniel to a pulp for a prank. After the stuff you pulled on Daniel, dude, that ain't cool, man. That is not cool. Trying to think. But A Quiet Place be considered horror? I mostly watch Quiet Place, any time of the year. I enjoy those movies. I do. I find them to be very interesting dystopian society movies. I need to watch that one, Ferris. I need to watch it because look, I love Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar in the Scooby Doo movies. I was just talking about those before. I don't know if you heard me talk about them. I don't know if you saw them and if you have any thoughts on them. But look, Sarah Michelle Gellar, listen, Buffy, she's awesome as Buffy. To me, this is like the Hollywood couple that people don't talk enough about. Like, I gotta watch that one. I gotta watch this one. I also gotta watch the Candyman movies, not just the original, but the new one. I heard the new one's actually good as well. Wow. Yeah. If you saw those movies, let me know. I can get my thoughts on those again. But I will say, so I haven't played the game yet because I don't have a PS5. But from what I've seen, I think Tony Todd has done an incredible job voicing Venom. I will admit I've watched some walkthrough videos because I'm curious about the story. I can't wait to finally play the game when I eventually get a PS5 and buy the game. But Tony Todd's got a great voice. I actually think his voice is better than. Does Tom Hardy do the voice of Venom for the movies as well? Besides Eddie Brock, I mean, Tom Hardy's good in that role, but Tony Todd's voice as Venom, to me, that is probably my favorite voice of Venom so far. Um, hey, have you played the game, Ferris? If so, what would you think about it? A lot of people love the game so far. I know my friend Aaron from Aaron World Order has been doing streams about the game, walkthrough streams. Um, Trying to see like if there's. So let's think about if there's any upcoming horror movies. I know Scream 7, they want to put in production once things get settled. We got Beetlejuice 2 starring Michael Keaton. Jenna Ortega is also going to be in it. And I haven't watched the Wednesday show. I'm going to be honest, I've never been the biggest fan of the Addams Family. I mean, the movies from the 90s were okay. I used to watch those a lot on Halloween, but I really never were interested in them. One movie that drove me insane, I know Tim Burton produced Wednesday, that I actually just thought of, is Dark Shadows. The Dark Shadows, directed by Tim Burton. One of the weirdest movies I had ever seen in the theaters. I mean, I know that's the kind of movies Tim Burton makes, but there's just something off about that movie. Anything else? Because I think I'm gonna start winding it down. Um, Anything else, Ferris, that you want me to cover? If you're still watching, um, because I think I've kind of covered all the movies I would want to cover. Um, I was watching Sleepy Hollow before I came on. After I watched the Halloween Town movies, the one directed by Tim Burton. It's a good movie. It's not my favorite Tim Burton movie. Same thing with Sweeney Todd. It's a good movie, Sweeney Todd. Not my favorite Tim Burton. Like for me, my favorite Tim Burton movies that he directed that I've seen are always going to be Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands. That's one though that I can watch any time of the year. Even though it does feel more like a Halloween movie based on the tone and themes of it. Although it also takes place around Christmas later in the movie. But yeah, these are kind of my thoughts on some of the movies I love watching around Halloween. And as I said before, we all have our different tastes. There's different stuff that we like. And yeah. As far as other stuff about Halloween, I like the decorations. I like dressing up at times. The most common costume that I've been in the last few years has either been Batman or a basketball player. I put one of my basketball jerseys on, or I put my Batman cape on. I like looking at the decorations. I do, the trick or treating was fun as a kid. I notice a lot of people don't do trick or treating as much anymore. But then again, the world's gone crazy, so I can't really blame them. But yeah, we are winding it down, and thank you, Ferris, for being very active in the chat and giving me some very good questions, and also helping me remember some stuff because there's so much to cover around this time of year that we forget some movies, and yeah. So thank you all for watching. If you're watching us on replay, thank you for watching it as well, and please like and subscribe if you haven't. Please share us with someone that likes Halloween movies and shows. And I do want to do one more Halloween themed horror spooky theme review tomorrow. Maybe on Halloween I'll do another one as well, but there's definitely going to be one more if I don't do one on Halloween. Yeah, same here. Yeah, I've watched it and it's been fantastic. Yeah, I definitely got to get a PS5. I really do. But yeah, like I said, please subscribe and like this if you haven't already, and share this with someone that likes Halloween stuff, that likes horror, spooky stuff. There's a big range of it, from stuff that I watched as a child to what I'm watching now, and I think we've seen a revamp of horror. I know I said there's been some that I haven't had interest in watching in theaters, but I've heard some positive stuff about this. Jordan Peele's one of the best right now. Get Out's a very good movie that I gotta rewatch. It's been ages. I still gotta watch Nope. But yeah, horror just keeps growing, and I'm glad that it's starting to get back on track. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys real soon, and I will have one more review before Halloween. If I don't talk to you guys for that, or if you don't watch that review, have a happy and safe Halloween, and have fun. Take care, everyone.